Really cool.
Very neat.
We're not quite ready to start yet, but just want to let you know we are going to start recording now. Be advised. Mayor, I'll give you the sign when it's time to start. All right, everyone, it is 7 o'clock. Mayor, you may begin when you are ready.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Higdon, Mayor of Matthews. Welcome to our December 13th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting, the last of this year and the last of the current term. I'll start with some introductions. We have Commissioner Dave Bland, Town Attorney Charles Buckley, Commissioner and Reverend Larry Whitley, Town Clerk Lori Canapino, Commissioner John Urban, Planning Director Jay Camp, Commissioner Ken McCool, Town Manager Hazen Blodgett, Mayor Pro Tem Renee Garner, Assistant Town Manager Becky Hawk, Commissioner Jeff Miller, and our Communications Coordinator Maureen Keith. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, a portion of this meeting of the Matthews Board of Commissioners will be conducted remotely using the Zoom virtual meeting platform, and a portion will be held in person outside the Matthews Town Hall. The meeting will also be available to view via the free Zoom remote meeting platform and the Town of Matthews YouTube channel. The meeting will be available via the free Zoom remote meeting program. To join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, click the URL that's seen there on our website. It's https://us06web.zoom.us/8726770268. I'm sure nobody can remember that, but it's on our website. And enter the meeting ID that's listed there. You can also listen live via telephone, 877-853-5247. And there's also a meeting ID for that, or One Tap Mobile. Comments on any matter not related to a public hearing are limited to 4 minutes, or approximately 500 words per comment. The board has allocated 20 minutes to read the submitted comments. Any comments not read during the meeting due to the time limit will be recorded in the meeting minutes. There are 3 ways to make a comment: by submitting written comments before the meeting via email to matthews@matthewsnc.gov. Comments will be read into the record by staff. Emailed comments must include the words public comment in the subject line. These comments must be received no later than 3 p.m. on Monday, December 13th. Or you can register in advance at matthews@matthewsnc.gov, or use Zoom's raise hand feature during this meeting. This feature will be recognized only during those times in which comments are allowed to be given. Citizens will not be allowed to speak outside of those times. If you have joined by desktop or mobile device, click raise hand in the webinar controls. This will be recognized as a request to speak. You'll be called on at the appropriate time. You'll be recognized by the name listed on your Zoom account. You may click raise hand again to lower the hand if you no longer wish to speak. If you've joined by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. This will be recognized as a request to speak. Citizens will be called on at the appropriate time, and you'll be recognized by your telephone number. Please be sure to unmute yourself, turn your camera on if one is available, and identify yourself before you begin speaking. The second portion of this meeting, the swearing in of the mayor and board through to adjournment, will be held in person outside Matthews Town Hall, located at 232 Matthews Station Street. This portion will also be streamed live via Zoom and YouTube. And if you come in person, wear a jacket. It's going to be a little chilly tonight. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to start by giving tonight's moment of reflection. In my faith tradition, the Bible documents the core values of our Christian beliefs. And during the winter of 58 AD, one of the primary authors of the Bible, New Testament, Paul the Apostle, found himself in the Greek city of Corinth. And from Corinth, he wrote the longest single letter in the New Testament, which he addressed to God's beloved in Rome. And hence it's the book of Romans. And I'd like to read 5 verses from Romans tonight from chapter 12, verses 6 through 10 from the New International Version, because I believe the advice given here is still relevant for us today. We all have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophecy in accordance to your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. And if it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Love must be sincere, so hate what is evil and cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love and honor one another above yourselves. Thank you. We'll now go on to the Pledge of Allegiance. You can see our virtual flag. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now go on to agenda item number 4, receive a COVID-19 update from Chief Rob Kinnenberg. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Let's see, this report's based on information received roughly November 30th, through today's report on COVID positivity numbers. Mecklenburg County is averaging about 174 new cases a day, and last week experienced an 8.4% positivity rate for COVID testing. Positivity rates had been on the rise for the last month. I'm happy to report that today's positivity number is 7.8. So we're going to be optimistic that over the course of a week, we've seen a slight decline in testing numbers. About 1,600 people a day are being tested in Mecklenburg County. Cumulative cases are around 162,000 with 1,288 deaths countywide. We are still considered to be in moderate to substantial community spread based on that 8.4 to 7.8 number. 155 people are reported to be hospitalized due to COVID. 64% of Mecklenburg County is partially vaccinated, 58% is fully vaccinated, and 33% have received boosters. The first known case of the Omicron variant has been identified in North Carolina at a UNCC student. But as the news reported, only 48 people countrywide, US-wide, had tested positive for Omicron. So the numbers and the mapping on the news are a little misleading. Mecklenburg County had voted to lower the threshold on the mask mandate if we hit a 7-day positivity rate below 5 for 7 consecutive days. Again, I'm happy to report we're getting a little closer. Public Health Director Gibby Harris retires at the end of the month, and Raynard Washington takes over as the Mecklenburg County Public Health Director. That's the end of my report. I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chief Kinnenberg? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Mr. Manager, do we have any items to be added to the agenda?
No, excuse me. No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
And now we're up to the section on public comment. Lori, I understand we have one person that requested to speak in advance, Lakeitha Blakeney.
We do, but I don't see Ms. Blakeney in the audience list. Ms. Blakeney, if you are here under a different name, perhaps you could use the raise hand feature. I don't think she's here, sir.
Okay, has anybody else indicated they'd like to make public comment?
If anyone else would like to make a public comment, please use the raised hand feature. If you're using a desktop, it is one of the options on the computer screen or on your phone, on your mobile device, excuse me. If you're on the telephone, you can press *9 to do the same thing. And no, Mr. Mayor, it does not appear that anyone wishes to make a comment at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, planning and development business. First, we'll receive a report from the planning board. Mr. Foster.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, and Planning Board members. I have the report for our Planning Board meeting from November 23rd, 2021. Tonight, we have 3 items for your action. Item number 1 is rezoning application 2021-740 Stone to change the zoning from R20 to B1 CD on that certain property located at 400 Matthews Mint Hill Road and further designated as tax parcel 215-011-02. Members of the planning board reviewed the B1 CD zoning request, the updated site plan, and the added prohibited uses the applicant was proposing. Members of the planning board felt the site would be a better fit for the O office zoning district. Members also suggested providing a list of approved uses rather than only listing the prohibited ones. The planning board motioned to recommend not approving the requested zoning action on B1 CD as most currently amended. The recommendation passed with 5 members in favor of denying the request and 2 other members opposed to the motion. Item number 2, administrative amendment, Tyler Mundy, William Rhodes subdivision. Request to amend the approved conditional site plan 2021-730 located at 2914 and 2900 Williams Road and further being designated as tax parcels 193-441-69 and 193-44-59. Planning board reviewed the revisions to the approved zoning petition 2021-730 located on Williams Road. The request was to reduce the number of lots from 10 to 7, reduce the length of the cul-de-sac as to avoid a stream crossing, revise the location of the stormwater BNP, move 1 lot closer to Williams Road, and increase the open space and tree-safe areas. Members of the planning board unanimously recommended the request for approval. Members found the amendment to be consistent with the Matthews land use plan because it reduced density while still providing quality housing options. And the request was found to be reasonable because it will tailor the existing zoning plan to the neighborhood. Item number 3, administrative amendment, Coles/Sephora. This request was to allow placement of a sign in a conditional district located at 9617 East Independence Boulevard, further being designated as tax parcel 193-303-15. Staff explained to members of the planning board that the Coles property is in a conditional zoning district. This is an older form of conditional zoning that the town no longer uses. For the conditional district still remaining, all the standards are completely site-specific and unique to each property. The original sign request that was presented would be non-conforming because of the number of signs that would be on the Coles storefront, which would be 2 separate signs. The applicant presented a second design option that would be more conforming to the neighborhood zoning districts. Members discussed the 2 sign options, recommended unanimously that the updated sign option that combines the Coles and Sephora sign be approved and forwarded to the Board of Commissioners. That would be recommended for approval. 2 items for information only. Administrative amendment for First Citizens Bank. Request to allow placement of a sign in the conditional district located at 1300 Matthews Township Parkway and further being designated as tax parcel 193-381-97. Planning board members reviewed the request for 3 signs that would be placed on the First Citizens Bank building. Each sign was 4 square feet in size and would be conforming to what is allowed in the neighborhood zoning districts. Planning board unanimously approved the signs request, finding the application consistent with the Matthews land use plan because it abides by the guidelines set forth in the downtown master plan. The request was found to be reasonable because the proposed sign changes did not significantly impact the intent of the original building. The representative from First Charter mentioned that it was very difficult to recognize that bank as a bank. And this request was simply put in to highlight the fact that it is a First Citizens facility. Item number 2 was a micro mobility discussion. This was specific to scooters. Planning staff updated the members of the planning board on the request to bring scooters to the downtown area of Matthews. Staff has drafted an ordinance that was modeled after other cities in the state and reviewed the draft plan with the planning board. Members suggested further information on geofencing locations and speeds, particularly around the downtown area and other particular areas of town. Members were also concerned about the enforcement of the ordinance and verifying age requirements for rider operations. Planning board is requested to review data received during the Bird scooter. Bird is the company name, trial period. That is our report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions for Mr. Foster? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into item 7B1, zoning application 2021-737, Mount Harmony Cottages to change the zoning from R15 to R9 CD on that certain property designated as 2700 Mount Harmony Church Road and further designated as tax parcel 215-12307. Mr. Will.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. So what we have is a rezoning, as the mayor mentioned, from R15 to R9 CD, conditional. The applicant proposes to change the zoning in order to construct 16 single-family homes in this area. At the planning board meeting, members of the planning board had concerns over the increase in density from R15 to R9, and they did question whether this could or not may or may not be developed as an R15 and be consistent with the neighborhood to the north. Additionally, some of the planning board members wanted to eliminate lot 11 in order to create more open space and tree save area. The planning board passed a recommendation to approve the zoning petition by a split vote of 4-3. After this decision, or after this recommendation, the applicant came back with a slightly revised site plan showing the following changes. Lot 11 has been eliminated, and now there are only 16 proposed lots for single-family homes. There's increased screening and fencing along Mount Harmony Church Road, and updated unit elevations are presented. Let me go ahead and share my screen to share the updated site plan. As we can see, this is the area where lot 11 used to be. And again, there's only 16 lots now. Increase in open space and tree save area. And this is their tree survey. And these are their updated design concepts that have been submitted. The staff recommends approval of this petition as amended. 2021-737 change in zoning from R15 to R9 CD with associated conditions as presented. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time. Also, I will also say included in your packet was some updated information from the petitioner, including some updated renderings and elevations.
All right, are there any questions for Rob? Hearing none, are there any motions? Commissioner Urban.
I'll go ahead. I do first want to say I appreciate the petitioner responding to the request of the commissioners and the planning board with the decreasing a number of lots and making some more green space and some adjustments out at the front of the street as well. So I'm willing to make a motion here for zoning application 2020-737. The requested zoning action is most currently amended is recommended for approval and has been found to be consistent with the land use plan because it will provide a variety of housing styles, densities, and locations, and encourages design and construction of alternate style housing and infill development. It is also reasonable in that it provides for compatible land use adjacent to a single family zoning.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Urban, second from Commissioner Whitley. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Move on to the next item, zoning application 2021-740 Stone to change the zoning from R20 to B1 CD on that certain property located at 400 Matthews Mint Hill Road and further designated as tax parcel 215-01102. Rob, you're up again.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is 400 Matthews Mint Hill Road. The original petition was to change the zoning from R20 to B1 CD. I'm going to go through a number of changes, but the big one is that the applicant has now requested to, they're no longer seeking the B1 CD zoning designation, but rather office or OCD, with the only permitted use being general or professional offices. So the planning board discussed this proposal at length and motioned not to approve the requested zoning action because a better fit for the site may be the office zoning with a list of permitted uses rather than the list of prohibited uses. This motion passed 5-2. Again, the petitioner came back with some revisions to the site plan. Additionally, the applicant is proposing to replace any trees that are removed, replace them in kind. And finally, the driveway is now where the existing curb cut is located on the property, which is towards the center of the property. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you the updated site plan. As you can see, the driveway used to be on the right-hand side here. Now it is towards the center of the property. 2 trees will be removed and a note indicating conditions that trees will be replaced. Again, the proposed zoning district is office with conditions, and the only permitted land use will be general and professional office. Stop sharing, and I can bring that up again if we need to, but I'd be happy to. Staff recommends, let me find my recommendation here. With the proposed changes and provided conditions, approval of the zoning application 2021-740 change in zoning from R20 to OCD with conditions is recommended for approval. Again, happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Commissioner Urban.
So Rob, I was reading through the emails back and forth on this one, and there was discussion about you're making this change to another zoning. Do we not have to go back through a public hearing process, or because the petitioner is willing to accept this change, we can proceed?
That's a great question, and I think Mr. Buckley has an answer for us.
Commissioner, that can be changed because it's a lower intense use. So it can be changed now with agreement of the petitioner.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know the species of trees that are going to be removed? Those oak trees?
I do not have a sense for what those trees that are to be removed are. But again, the applicant will replace what's in kind. Obviously not with the size that's going to be removed, but they have committed to replacing trees, not just little Charlie Brown Christmas trees.
Right, that's something I'd like to get an agreement from the applicant on, because obviously we don't expect large trees to be replaced, but something a little bit larger caliber, not a seedling or, a tree with 2 leaves on it. We want something, a few years old to replace them with. So if we can get an agreement on that, that would be good. Mayor Pro Tem Garner? I'm sorry, Commissioner Urban, did you have, go ahead. John, did you say something? Maybe not, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem Garner, go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that going through the center, we requested that because it disturbed fewer trees than going down the side. And I drove by there several times and looked at the lot, and I don't know that, I think the parking lot in the back may impact a few trees, but it's not to the same extent that, that side driveway would have.
That's the way I remember it too, Renee.
So about the time Mayor Pro Tem Garner started to speak, I heard a male voice that I thought was John Urban. Who was that? There you go. Go ahead.
John, is there a caliper size you want to set for any tree plantings as part of the motion?
I don't know, 3 or 4 inches maybe.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we currently have shown on the plan a 3-inch caliper tree is shown to be replaced in kind.
That's sufficient. Thank you. Yeah, we've been down this path before, and when we haven't specified it, we've had, trees that were this big planted, and we're going to eliminate those first few years of growth and get a tree that'll start growing more quickly. So that's acceptable. I think 3 inches is a pretty substantially sized tree. Are there any other questions or comments or motions? Commissioner Urban.
Hearing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion. First item, though, is that I didn't have a problem with it being B1 because we're losing some of the diversity of maybe a florist or an artist studio or even a coffee shop in this scenario. But if the petitioner is happy with it being in a office situation, that's fine. They can always rezone it later down the road. But more than happy to accommodate them here. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve 2020-740. The zoning action is most currently amended as recommended for approval and has been found to be consistent with the land use plan because it is creative reuse of an existing residential structure that is in close proximity to downtown, and is reasonable in that it will tailor the uses of the existing zoning site plan to the neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Urban, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Garner. We'll take a roll call vote. There's no further discussion. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to the next item, 7B3, consider micro mobility ordinance. Nadine Bennett.
That item was removed from this agenda, sir.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Sorry. Moving on, then we'll go to the next one. Consider site plan and elevations for the Matthews Commerce Center at 10800 Monroe Road. I think Darren's going to take this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Give me 1 second. All right. All right, so this is the final lot at Matthews Commerce Center on Monroe Road. That property is zoned I-1 CD. As part of that conditional district, there were notes that that before it goes in for development approvals, the site plan and the building elevations were required to come back before the Board of Commissioners. This is the site. It's in the very back of the lot. It's behind, I believe it's Covenant Pediatrics and Dennis Slide. let's see, excuse me. Just to kind of highlight some of the conditional notes that were attached to that rezoning. It was required to have pedestrian connectivity to the front of the building or to the front entrance of the building from the street, not just the parking lot. There is a private road requirement that has been included. The layout does include or does meet the standards of the conditional notes. As you'll see in the exhibits towards the end, there was an additional buffer from the houses in the back that were included as part of that conditional zoning. That's been incorporated into the site plan. And then the four-sided architecture has also been included on this, or the building elevations. What we have here is the proposed site plan. The shaded areas in the park or for the parking lot and the drive, that'll be the new asphalt that's going to be laid down. Everything that's shown in white is there existing now. That was installed as part of the Red Radish building a few years ago. We also have the landscaping that's included. This does meet our landscaping requirements. They included the floor design. And we also have the color or the shaded elevations as well. And then this is a section from the original site plan that was approved showing Drive B and Drive A would be this parcel on the property. And this is the layout that the applicants were going with over the course of the development. And the conditional notes. I believe the applicants are in attendance. Are there any questions for staff or the applicants?
Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
What's the front of the building? I know I'm sure it says it. I can't really differentiate one side from the other.
Right, I probably should have highlighted that. Give me 1 second to get back up to it. Okay, so this left side, that would be that would be in front of the street. The one down here that says front elevation, that would be facing the parking lot or the parking area. I'll scroll back up to the site plan to kind of put it in perspective. This rear elevation, this without the parapet wall, that would be looking the site on the, I can't remember, I'm blanking on the name of the park.
Warner Park.
Warner Park. Thank you.
Sure.
It's backing up adjacent to that site. There's a section highlighted here that's kind of cut out. That's because there's a berm that sits there. So there's actually going to be a retaining wall in that section. And then this right side elevation, that would be facing the rear of the property where that additional buffer was set in. So this would be the section up against Warner Park. This would be the side of the building that was facing the residential homes back here. This would be the short wall that was facing Street B, and then the parking area side.
And I have another question, and it's not entirely related to approval or not approving, but going back to when this area was planned, is there a reason that these buildings aren't multi-story versus, when we always talk about land use, it feels like there's an opportunity here that's missing.
Right. So I do know, looking back at the conditional notes, there is a height requirement or a maximum height requirement of 35 feet. I think based off of the elevate, or if I'm remembering correctly from the elevations, I think at the top of the parapet, it was sitting at about 25-ish, 28 feet right now. So the size restriction could have been included on that. But as far as when it was originally approved, I'm not sure if that was taken into consideration.
Renee, my recollection, this was approved in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, and it was definitely an era of less is more with development, and oftentimes, with concerns with traffic and whatnot, the board wanted to see how little an applicant could propose. So it's amazing how quickly things have changed.
Commissioner Urban.
Darren or Jay, having dealt with those buildings before, are there no conditional notes that require the condensing units and or HVAC rooftop units to be hidden? You dinged me on the other buildings, so I'm assuming is the fact that there's a parapet, there's no parapet on the back of this building with gutters and downspouts also have to follow those rules, or there's some other provision for that?
So there is a conditional note in the architectural standards for that zoning district, or for these zoning districts. If I'm stating it correctly, it was just from the streets, both public or private, was where the screening had to be from. And so since that side, that one side that doesn't have the parapet, since it's up against the neighboring property, it wouldn't be seen from the street, I believe was the idea.
So if the street in the future punches through, the neighbor is going to see those units. Because the whole gist behind this secondary road network back there was to be able to connect behind Monroe Road, interconnecting parking lots to act as sort of a secondary means of egress for things. And the idea is that you can either punch through to the north or punch through to the south, and you're going to be interconnecting other properties. So that means that the property owner to the south is going to be the one that's going to be subject to being able to see this equipment on this roof that we've so painstakingly tried to disguise in all the other buildings.
I believe that's something that we could ask the applicant if they'd be willing to include, would be to extend that parapet back around so that that neighboring property wouldn't be subject to the view of the mechanical equipment.
The applicants are here. Mr. Helms? You're muted, sir. We can't hear you.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Red Radish property is built in the same way with the open parapet with the open end on the right side of the building instead of this is on the left side of the building. And it also, you can see from the neighboring side of the property. So it does not have a full parapet either.
Commissioner Miller.
What about privacy fencing? It's pretty easy to enclose it with enough space to work on the units that cosmetically can hide them. I don't know how Commissioner Urban feels about that, or Mr. Helms, but it's cheaper.
They're on the roof, right?
But you're talking about a fence on the ground, Jeff?
No, around the AC unit, even if it's on the roof.
If there is a screening device that actually mounts to the curb of the HVAC unit and actually encloses the HVAC unit, and if they want to offer that up as a solution, I'd buy that as well. I frankly, I guess I missed it on the Red Radish, and that's on me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Helms.
Yeah, I mean, we just designed it in similar fashion since we did the last building over there. So that's why we did it the way we did, but I don't think it's a problem if we need to screen it on the roof, we can do that. We've got sufficient screening around the other three sides that will cover it up.
Yeah.
I think I'm hearing that would be the will of the board. Where we haven't done that have created some less than attractive viewpoints from different angles that some of the properties have been developed. Are there any other questions or comments? Either for Darren or the applicant, or any motions? Anyone? Mayor Pro Tem Gardner?
Well, I would like to see the facade a little more dressed up. I think we usually ask applicants to do a little more, to give it a little more personality, I guess. And I feel like this is a fairly blank building. So, usually maybe Commissioner Urban has something to say about that, but I would like to bring that forward as a discussion for the board.
I appreciate your suggestion. I would totally support that, Ms. Gardner.
Do we have some specific suggestions for the applicants so we can, know better what we're talking about?
I mean, I go back to the Tryon Medical Center that was just finished. And when we discussed that with the architect, they went from something similar to this to a design that integrated more horizontal elements and then some lattice working up the side to make it, to bring sort of a pedestrian scale to it and an interesting interaction with the space. So, maybe because the elevations aren't showing any greenery, I'm not feeling that level of scale, but that's where I tend to go.
Mr. Whitley.
Could you go back and show us the picture again, please? Darren. Now, my point of view is, I like the different colors of the brick. It's modern windows and it's got a little shelter over the entrance door. I'm satisfied with that. I mean, we've asked the developer to put some cover around all around the building, and they agreed to that. I'm satisfied with what we are and what they agreed to do, and they didn't hesitate to do that when John asked them that. That's my opinion. But I think it's a good looking building.
All right, do we have any comments from some of the commissioners that haven't spoken? And Darren, can you go back to the gallery view? Commissioner McCool.
I concur with Pastor Whitley. I think the building is sufficient and they seem to be making the changes that we are requesting. So I'm fine with it as is.
Commissioner Urban.
All right, so you opened up Pandora's box. One of the things, going back to Commissioner Gardner's comment about 2 stories versus 1 story, is that property was developed solely for point blank range. And then as other people look to buy the property, they were one-offs, meaning a dentist doesn't want to operate a 2-story building. He wants the building just for himself. And then the pediatric doctor was the same way. So there was never an opportunity for mixed use. My only suggestion is that there's a lot of details are shared between all the buildings that are already there. Point Blank Range, Dennis Salute, and the Covenant Pediatrics. And that includes the way the base is done, how the brick's articulated, changes of colors or whatever. But none of the buildings look identical. I mean, they have their own sort of look to them and appeal from materials. But my recommendation would be, if the board's willing to look at some of the brick patterning, the details, the mixing of materials, to sort of tie in a little bit more cohesively with the development from that standpoint. And I think that's what Renee's trying to get at, is bring some character to this, that the coping cap should have a little bit more richness. The top of the building should have something, a little bit more different brick detailing. Granted, they got two different colors in there, but everything's a very flat surface. Only the entry is articulated by 8-inch offset. That's 1 pen width, and that's about it. All the other buildings have a little bit more relief to them, especially at the entries. And so that's the only thing I would say, is look at what's there, see if you can't pick up some clues from what's there as well to tie that building in a little bit more successfully. Red Radish is an outlier. It didn't pick up on the other buildings as much as the others. I get it that this building is in the back, but if the road punches through, like we've talked about, ultimately that'll be a first position building that people will see on a regular basis. So I think to Commissioner Garner's point, a little bit more emphasis and detailing would be really nice. And that's just one of 6 speaking on that matter.
Commissioner Bland or Miller, do either of you have a comment?
I would, I think it looks okay. It's not right out on the front of the road anyway. My understanding is it's pretty much back against the park on the back side. It's behind 2 other buildings. I mean, it's attractive as an office building, but it's not something that's sitting right out on the, the main highway either. So I'm satisfied with it.
Mr. Miller?
Sorry. I'm not qualified to state what it should have, but I agree with, one thing that went through my mind is maybe some other trim piece in the beige brick, an accent color to pick up on the windows, or what Commissioner Urban stated of pick up on the other buildings. And don't underestimate that a lot of those people in the park are going to be looking at it. It's, that's not to be underestimated. So I think a dress up in character is appropriate.
Would anyone, Commissioner, I'm sorry, Mr. Helms?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not opposed to dressing up the brick and that kind of thing, but we would just like to, get approval so we can move forward at this time. But like herringbones or something over the canopies, or if there's some more suggestions, we could do something with the brick to dress it up. It is very similar to the Red Radish, but we can do some dress up to it if we need to.
Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Garth White is associated with this case and has requested to speak. If Mr. Helms would like him to, he can address.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah,
Mr. White. Mr. White, go ahead, sir.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So I was only going to mention, I had asked to raise my hand a little bit earlier, but Mr. Helms picked up on my point that we're willing to make some changes, some architectural issues, as you mentioned, Mr. Helms, with respect to the brick patterns and that sort of thing, to dress it up to the liking of the commission. And so we're certainly willing to make those minor changes.
Well, thank you, sir. My suggestion would be that we defer this for 1 month and have you come back with some changes. I'm generally the least prescriptive of anybody. Let you build what you want to build. Let the market determine if it's really attractive. I do like hiding air conditioning units and things of that nature. But I would suggest if you come back and maybe not do something that's going to be a great expense to you, but something that could be some minor things that could dress it up a little bit and come back to us in a month. Would you be amenable to that?
Well, may I ask this? So we are under a bit of a tight deadline in terms of our construction schedule. And so we were hoping to begin this project towards the latter part of January, beginning of February. And so I was wondering if there was something that we could do and get conditional approval subject to, you know, some additional plans being submitted, but not having to wait and, you know, a full 30 days to come back before the board to get the approval.
Jay or Charlie, do you have a comment concerning that?
Well, I'm not sure how we can do a conditional condition. I'm sure that somewhere in the dark past of Matthews, we've done such a thing when it came to elevations. I'm not sure one way or the other is going to affect the legality of it. It's going to be up to the board if they want to give a tentative approval subject to additional final approval or something.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yeah, I agree with Charlie. How about Renee and John get together with them and whatever they want to make that look a little better, but and then conditional, but let them go ahead and move and do that. They already agreed to put on the top to cover the whole thing around, but whatever else Renee and John Urban feel like they want to touch up, they agreed to do that as well too. And as the mayor said, not to cost a lot of more expense to the applicant.
Commissioner Miller, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed site plan and elevations, and that they work out the details of style and any add-ons with John Urban and Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Mr. Buckley.
I would just say that I would respectfully request that you allow discussions between the two commissioners, but that the final decision not rest upon those two commissioners. I don't think the board as a board can delegate that to two commissioners.
Should
But
we
I do think you can move
2 weeks?
Well, no, I think you can move forward with a condition on a condition, meaning let them discuss with Mayor Pro Tem Garner and Commissioner Urban the architectural suggestions. Go ahead and give tentative approval, but they can move forward, but get final approval at the next meeting. By the full board.
The very next meeting, which would be the first meeting in January.
Correct. But let them move forward. Go ahead and give tentative approval subject to input with Commissioner Urban and Mayor Pro Tem Garner, but final approval. But give them a warm, fuzzy feeling that it's okay for them to move forward. Because I understand time sometimes is the critical factor here.
Mr. Helms.
Yeah, we're just looking to move forward with land development. That takes some of the longest time frame. So if the board approves the site plan as is, and we need to work on the elevations for the first meeting in January, that should be okay. And we can work on those and get those back to the board, and we can make suggestions as well, but we can get those back to to Darren in a week or so.
This is not something that we usually do, but you've caught us in a particularly festive holiday mood. So maybe in good faith, we can move forward. Commissioner Whitley, it sounds like you started to make that motion. Do you want to go ahead and make the motion?
Jeff made the motion. I'll second it. Jeff has already made the motion.
Jeff, can you repeat your motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed site plan and tentative elevations with the idea that the petitioner will work out those details. They can move forward and they will work out the details with Renee Garner and Commissioner Urban in the near future, and it'll come back before the board the first meeting in January.
Second that.
Well, that's where I would suggest that they work out the detail and don't include Mayor Pro Tem Garner and Commissioner Urban in that motion. They're the two that will work with them, but you don't want to delegate to two commissioners that kind of authority.
They will work out the details with the commission, the Board of Commissioners.
Correct. That'll be fine.
Is that good?
Second that. So Renee and John, y'all out, just go ahead and talk to them.
That'll work.
All right.
Lori, is our first meeting in January the 10th? Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
This will come back to the board on January 10th. Is that okay with the applicant?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second by Commissioner Whitley. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Whitley.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so that passes. So thank you, gentlemen, and
Thank you.
good luck. Merry Christmas.
Appreciate it.
Move on to item 7B5, consider elevations for 10809 and 10905 East Independence Boulevard. Be Rob Will again.
I'll be taking this one this evening, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
And in the interest of time, just give you a heads up, the applicant as well as their architect is here. They have an update presentation for you, I believe. This concerns elevation approvals for the two capital multifamily development that was approved back in March. Let me share my screen really briefly here, so something to point to. All right, so as you see on the site plan before you, the blue line delineates development area A and development area B. As a component of the approval, development area A did not require further elevation approval by the board because there was a 3D elevation and some other drawings as part of the approval package. Development area B, however, had some very broad renderings, but the conditional note stated the applicant would come back before you for elevation approval in the future. So that is why we are here this evening. We're here to review the townhome and single family elevations. However, if you've reviewed your packets this evening, you'll know that we're also bringing development area A back to you. The developer did approach us several months ago, said, look, as we've got into design, we've made some changes to the buildings, and staff felt that the changes were such a deviation that this was something that the board needed to review again. So what I've done here outside of what's in your agenda packet is create just two before and after images here. So the image on the left is the rendering facing the, if you'll recall, there's sort of a public space at the corner of Overcash and Northeast Parkway. The first floor of these buildings have commercial or retail spaces. The image on the right are the updated elevations that the applicant has provided to us. So you can see that the intent is still to have a mill or old mill influence to the architecture, but you know the roof lines have changed, the windows have changed. There's a lot of substantial changes to the buildings. On the second illustration I've created here, this is more of a front view potentially of what it would look like on Northeast Parkway. The upper image, again, is one of the renderings that was included in the approval package. The image below is the latest update to the main multifamily buildings that we've received from the applicant. So again, I'm here to say, architecture is very subjective. From our perspective, these buildings are merely different. We're not saying they're better or worse. As you were just talking about architecture with the last applicant, you have choices this evening to approve the elevations as presented, or perhaps to request some additional modifications and take this up again on January 10th. I can go through the townhome and single family elevations as well. However, they were already in the package and I know the applicant wants to share them, and I see the temperature keeps dropping. So I'll just stop right here unless you all have any additional questions for me.
Commissioner Urban.
Jay, we've been talking about this for a while now. Is there a possibility, I don't know where the board's going to go on this one, but there's a possibility to subdivide section A versus section B tonight and get them something off the table and move on and then still come back to the other section?
That's definitely, because they were divided in two different development areas, that's certainly an option.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie, I don't see an issue with that to approve some of the elevations.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you. I like the original proposed A, or the original proposal of elevation on section A. The secondary one looks like a Reformed church or something with the windows. They were mimicking, no offense, Rev, they were mimicking, old factories and mill town type buildings. And there is some parallel with the roof lines that we already have in town. And to put a gabled roof on it, I don't like the change. I like the original plan on section A.
I tend to agree as well, but can we go ahead and have the applicant, do they have a presentation they want to give? Jay?
Wes, I see you're on. Do you all have your own presentation or do we need to pull up the images?
I think if you can pull it up, we had coordinated ahead with, I think, is it Shayna or who, to have the ones that we submitted available.
All right, let me, so I'm going to go back to the original agenda item and you just, let's see. It sounds like there are not a lot of questions right now. Do you want to quickly go through the townhome and single family and then go back to the multifamily, or what's the board's pleasure on this one?
Sure. Let's look at them separately quickly.
Okay, so I'll start with the clubhouse, Wes, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think, what we wanted to do is just sort of, as we've gotten further in design and design refinement. Jay, I don't think, if you don't mind, actually just go back to the site plan real quickly.
Sure.
15. So one of the things as we refined site work, as we refined the engineering and the architecture and the design, if y'all recall previously, we had some of the townhomes, dispersed throughout development area B. As we got into road geometry and water and sewer and parking and grading, and just the hierarchy of design, it seemed to make more sense to organize the townhomes and their current configuration where you see right here. So we sort of have this hierarchy of the original apartment buildings, kind of the clubhouse and the townhomes, and then the single family. So this sort of stepping of density that worked better with, there's more topo to the site than you would otherwise think. And we're preserving a significant amount of tree save, if you can notice, between sort of 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37 in the middle. So trying to preserve significant trees in that sort of, common lawn area, set in motion some things, and then with storm retention and tying into elevations for sewer, just created some challenges. So the sort of hierarchy of this works, we think, much better. That allows us to expand the clubhouse. So we got rid of those smaller buildings, allowed us to get the pool bigger. You'll notice there's a secondary outdoor pavilion. And so that then set in motion some design changes, but I think the intent is still the same, which is the kind of the idea of sort of a central town square, town store kind of element with masonry and significant prominent roofline features. So the next couple slides are just some conceptual pictures of this. This is sort of, the first one was kind of the front view. This is sort of looking down the side views, and then keep flipping, Jay. The townhome buildings. Again, there's some logic to this in that the first row of townhomes, which is what you see here, are the townhomes that will front the parking and back into the apartments. And so we've got more of a, trying to create some vertical articulation, but create large. It's more of a sort of a central massing building versus a traditionally vertically demised townhome to help tie the apartments to the single family. So you can see the front elevation. So this would front, and then obviously the rear, which would share the alley with the other townhomes that then front on the common lawn with the single family. So Jay, to click to the next one, you can see these start to look more residential and get more vertical and the scale, because the front elevations here will share that common greenway with the 4 single family homes across. So trying to stage and stagger, the building architecture accordingly, and then flip through maybe to the rest of the single family homes. The idea, I think we talked about this before, is with 35 or so single family homes, we want to create a variety of building elevations, and then we'll intermix these throughout the development. So we won't have, 6 of them sitting right next to each other. And so we've got a couple different pictures of what we're thinking. So, similar to the residential buildings, trying to lean into a little bit more of a modern farmhouse theme, something a little bit different from sort of the conventional elements of the mill buildings. But you see lots of porches and vertical board and shake and roof articulations. So this is sort of where we are. I think the idea today would be to get any feedback or comment, or if these look like they're on the right path, to move forward with approval of that, and then we can flip back maybe to we can either have comment here maybe now, Jay, and then go back to the multifamily buildings later. That's probably the best if we can do that.
All right, do we have any comment? Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Just quickly, I have no concerns with section B at all. I thought that the elevations were very good looking, and I love the color palette.
Jay, can you flip back to the gallery view, please? Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I agree with Commissioner Miller. I think that the design is attractive. It looks like they'll age well. They have a lot of classic elements that will hold their own for a long time, and so I'm comfortable with these.
All right, any other comments? Are there any comments about the clubhouse itself? Everybody's happy. Commissioner Urban.
I've been talking to Wes and Jay and the people in Niles Bolton over the last few weeks, and I think development area B is good. I really especially like the single family homes. I'm a little disappointed that townhomes have now been segregated from the single family homes. I think that was a really rich plan, but the elements are all still there. The clubhouse has lost its mojo from what was originally detailed, but I can see my way past that aspect of it. I think still I think we could maybe pass along B and move forward, but A, I do kind of I've already mentioned this to Wes before, and we've had some conversations about some of the redesign of it. It's missing something. And what they presented originally, I think the board was really excited about and pleased with. And now this is sort of a night and day transition. And I'm not so sure we can absorb all that in 20 minutes.
We talked about possibly splitting this up. Is there anyone like to make a motion regarding section B? Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Well, before we move to that, I am looking at the clubhouse elevations now. And to me, it looks like the front elevation to me is the rear elevation, like they look flipped. And is there, it looks like a grander entrance at the rear. And I'd like to know a little more about that, and if other commissioners feel the same.
Jay, can you pull that back up? And Wes, you can feel free to comment if you like.
Yeah, so I think I guess what we were trying to do was create a more commercial storefront elevation facade. I mean, Renee, I think I see what you're saying, and the idea on the rear is we've got it embedded in that element that you see with the crosses and everything is a large covered patio. So I think some of that's just the depth and scale, but I think we were trying to create with the awning and the sort of multiple layers of fenestration, the idea and sense of an entrance. That entrance it's hard to see in the elevation view, but the front entrance, there is a vestibule that goes back in there, so there is more depth to that space that really doesn't show up in the elevation from just the way that it's articulated. But I think that's sort of what you're seeing.
I guess it doesn't read well, but to me, it looks like an extended stay hotel. It uses some of the same elements that are common throughout that design.
Well, that is definitely not the intent. So I'm taking copious notes and perhaps we can, if we needed to, we could beef up that awning element to try to give it more presence.
I would like to see that. And I'm giving more feedback than I usually do on architectural design tonight, but it's sort of, I did look at my notes several days ago, or at the packet several days ago, and there are a lot of differences here to absorb. So I'm kind of letting it all sink in.
Mr. Urban, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think Renee's hitting on something there. And Wes, maybe the point is that your entry, your front elevation to rear elevation might actually be almost identical in the sense that you create this axis through the building. And so when you're approaching the clubhouse from the courtyard, you can actually see through the clubhouse and see the pool beyond. And you kind of are inviting people from the pool to the courtyard, from the courtyard to the pool through this larger gateway. And I can see where Renee is thinking that the rear elevation is definitely more magnanimous than the front elevation. So maybe the step is to go ahead and make that attempt on both sides, connect both sides together through this clubhouse with that large glass area. Could be very, very inviting. They don't have to be the same depth relationship because the one's facing south and you're trying to create a porch. But I could see how this elevation could work on both directions and really have a really impressive view corridor for someone standing in the courtyard in development area B, looking through your clubhouse and seeing the pool. It's a great marketing tool, I think. And that would be my suggestion. If Renee thinks that might be one way of solving the problem, I'd be all for that.
I think that would be gorgeous.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think, in the interest of moving things forward, I think we can certainly, move forward with some sort of condition that we try to make the front elevation, that central, kind of brick component, mirror the rear. I'm all for getting more light in that space, so that's fine. Yeah, I think we'd like, the only thing I'd say, is we'd like some opportunity to create some signage or some awning presence in that sort of middle brick band element. You know what I mean?
Now, there's still areas to do that. There's still ways of doing that.
Okay.
All right, if we want to move the ball on section B, would someone like to make a motion?
Come on, Renee, you beat them up real good. Make the motion.
I need those notes. I will make a motion that we accept section B of the two capital partners, Independence Boulevard, Overcast Drive, Northeast Parkway, site plan and elevations with consideration for recommendations given.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Garner, a second from Commissioner Urban. We'll take a roll call vote if there's no further questions or comments. Seeing none. Mr. Bland?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
I vote yes. That passes unanimously for section B. Now we'll move on to section A. You've already heard some of our feedback, Mr. Talbo, but I think, it was unfortunate that you made such significant changes because the entire board was really excited about what you intended to build, and we're actually holding up. This is an example of things we want to build elsewhere. So I'm personally a little disappointed on how much it changed. I think Commissioner Miller made the comment it looked church-like. I think I said the new elevations kind of reminded me of a monastery. So it does have that kind of, I don't know, very.
I apologize. That was certainly not the intent. As we refined the drawings and there was, some ideation and just continued evolution to design thoughts. I think some of the concern was that the ends of the building didn't seem to anchor as much as they could to the park and to the entrances, and that creating some sort of flanking features, might create a more compelling unified design front, but we're certainly, weren't trying to do the bait and switch by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm happy to have our guys go back to the drawing board or revert back to the original plan. I think, the gabled feature sort of notwithstanding, are there other elements to this plan? If that was not there and maybe it was, more of a, of a parapet versus that pitch, that starts to mimic more of what you see on the upper left-hand side. I think one of the things we were trying to do as we got more into final unit design and actually laying out the kitchens and bathrooms and closets and porches and dealing with the actual, when you get the buildings laid out on the site and with grading and the DOT and all the, just all the just different stuff that comes when you go from sort of conceptual DD into full CDs. There were some technical issues, but I think any feedback that we can get from you all, that would be helpful to make sure we'll retool the team and can come back and try to better hit the mark.
I think one of the things for me that immediately I noticed was the size of the windows. The previous version looked much more to me like a reappropriated mill building rather than what the second one was. Mayor Pro Tem Garner, do you have a comment?
That's what I was going to say too, is that, and maybe part of it is that the elevations on the first set that we saw, the lights are, or the windows are lit up and you can see how much light is let through in the, and this looks very dark and not very open. So the windows personally would make a big impact.
Okay.
I think with some of those same sort of classic elements, the gabled roof could be attractive, but right now it does look very dark and enclosed.
Yeah, Mr. Miller.
I think that the Middletown Commercial District examples, which are on page 4 of the presentation, are very, very good. And in the lower center, I believe it is, you have some older style windows with an arch on the top that I've seen in Kannapolis areas and High Point and whatnot that reflect an older style building. And I like the original presentation mimicking that.
Is there any further comment? We have can we get a motion to defer this to consider some of the changes we've suggested? Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we defer this until January 10th. Is that what we said earlier?
I believe so.
That's correct.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
A motion by Mayor Pro Tem Garner, a second by Commissioner Urban. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So Wes, hopefully you can sharpen your pencil and maybe revert a little bit back more to the way it was originally, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely, guys. I'm sorry about that. That was certainly was not our intent. So we'll get the pencil sharpened and get it back to where it needs to be.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all so much. See you.
Move on to item 7B6, consider administrative amendment for Coles. Darren Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. Right, so this is an administrative amendment for Coles. This did go to planning board. I believe it was last month. Planning board did make the recommendation, or they did pass this one up to the Board of Commissioners. However, they did make a recommendation to approve the second option that was proposed. So Coles is zoned conditionally. This is an older zoning designation that the town no longer uses. However, since it is conditional zoning still, we can't just upgrade that zoning. It has to be done through a rezoning process where the property owner agrees to have the property rezoned to another conditional district. Typically, the way that's managed now is with our parallel districts like the B1 CD zoning or the I1 CD zoning, or even the shopping center district. So with the signage, because it is in that conditional district, we don't have any standards in our ordinance for that. So any new signage or signage updates, they do need to come back before the one of our boards as some type of update to the zoning district. So what's typical for all of our commercial districts, so B1, BH, shopping center, etc. Those all have the same signage requirements, at least in the table. And then those can vary depending on where they're at. And since this is out on Independence Boulevard, it does have additional signage requirements. So just to go back through the site, this does outline the Kohl's site, the existing signage. This is what was initially proposed. It would have two signs, one above the door, separate from the Kohl's sign. And then option B, they were actually going to remove the original Kohl's sign and then swap it out with a slightly smaller Kohl's label and then add the additional Sephora lettering underneath that. So the total size would be about 200 square feet. If this was in one of our current zoning districts, they would be allowed a single sign and up to 225 square feet. So this would meet the requirements of our current conditions. And then they're also making some additional changes to the tenant paneling. That's not required. The tenant paneling on the freestanding signs, that's not a part of this administrative amendment though. That's something that they can just swap out. So we're really just looking at the wall signage. Are there any questions for staff?
Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I have a question about when the secondary signs are allowed. And this goes way back 20 something years ago. I worked for Starbucks that's inside Harris Teeter, and they weren't allowed to have a sign outside. So what makes the difference between the two? Because I've noticed that there's a CVS sign at Target. It's more of a curiosity.
So that can kind of depend on, it can depend on where it's located. I think, I want to say Target, yeah, Target zone shopping, or says the Target that's in, or the Starbucks is in Target, right?
No, this is the Starbucks inside Harris Teeter. But I don't think the Starbucks inside Target has a sign either.
I would have to go back and look. I think because the verbiage can change, like I said, depending on where you're at. And I know Harris Teeter would fall under our independent sign corridor. And so with that, there are 5 different, I guess, tables designating what signage is allowed and what isn't allowed. And then that can all vary depending on how the site's structured, if there's any property in between the building, or I guess the building and its property and 74. There's, in short, it would just kind of, it depends, and it can vary to a good extent, just on like little site configurations.
And 20 years ago, that Harris Teeter, that portion of Matthews Festival or Matthews Township Shopping Center was zoned conditional. So the property owner at that time would have had to have gone through a rezoning process to try to amend the conditions to add a sign for that Starbucks. I recall some of those conversations when I first came here. It's since been zoned to be one SCD, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Would anyone like to make a motion? Commissioner McCool,
I'll make a motion that we approve Cole's sign option B because it is consistent. The changes are consistent with the land use plan as it promotes a non-residential destination-based land use along US 74. And it's reasonable because these changes are reasonable because the proposed zoning changes do not significantly impact the intent of the original rezoning. Sorry for my stutter.
thank you, Commissioner McCool. We have a second by Commissioner Bland. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
I vote yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll go on to the last one under planning and development business for tonight. Consider administrative amendment for the Mundy development on Williams Road. Rob Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is requesting an administrative amendment for a recently approved rezoning on Williams Road. They're asking for the following amendments: reducing the number of lots from 10 down to 7, reducing the length of the cul-de-sac so to as avoid a stream crossing, revise the location of the stormwater BMP, move Lot 1 a little closer to Williams Road, and an increase in open space and tree save areas. The planning board recommended approval of the administrative amendment to the Board of Commissioners. Now, as with all administrative amendments, the Board of Commissioners may approve, modify, and approve, or deny the administrative amendment. Additionally, the board may suggest to schedule a public input session or require the applicant to hold a community meeting for the administrative amendment. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the revised site plan. Somewhere, there it is. So as you can see, the number of lots has been reduced. The rear portion of the development will now just have a walking trail and be common open space. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time. And also we have the applicants are here as well.
Well, gentlemen, are there any questions or comments? I can tell you that I'm would generally be favorable to this because it's much less impactful than what we already approved. I think the neighbors would be thrilled to have less in this case. So, anybody else have any thoughts? See a thumbs up, Commissioner Miller.
I just want to clarify that the walking trail above the street and around the former circle is still going to be built at the cost of the development.
Yeah, that's correct. It's going to primarily be in the rear now, but it'll be much more extensive than it was originally. There's much more land for it now.
Yeah. Thank you, Tyler.
No problem. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
If there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve the requested administrative amendment to the Williams Road rezoning case 2021-730. It's consistent with the plan in that it reduces density while still providing quality housing options in the area, and is reasonable in that it will tailor the existing zoning site plan to the neighborhoods adjacent.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Heard it first from Mayor Pro Tem Garner. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
All right. Move on to item number 8, the consent agenda, items 8A through 8J.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. We approve consent agenda A through J3.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Whitley. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Bland. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes unanimously. We move on to 9A, new business. Consider sale of town-owned property, parcel 193-19109 on Sam Newell Road, Hazen, Blodgett.
Okay, Jay, are you driving? Can you pull that up real quick? I should have printed off my own copy. I need that enlarged. Okay, so on November 16th, we got a letter from John Carmichael representing the Elita Group. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but about acquiring a piece of property of the town that's 0.86 acres. There's an attached letter to the memo and also a map of the parcel. Of course, it fronts on Sam Newell Road. The parcel, and Jay was able to pull the old subdivision plat that was dedicated to the town in the 80s. And on the plat, it talks about for future purpose for a police or fire satellite station. I think the joke was that it was a heliport, but Jay was the one that said, no, it was whatever, police or fire. So what we did is we talked to each of our department heads about it to see what type of interest the town felt, there it is, the town would have for it. And initially, Chief Kenneberg really expressed some interest. The site is not very big, but in theory, it could have been used for a fire substation. And then when we talked about it, Susan Habina-Wooler got involved, and there you go. See, that is part of 2509, which is the widening of Independence Boulevard. And this is one of the parallel routes that is funded. So DOT is showing, and these are, I don't know how far along the engineering on this is, but they're showing taking 90 feet, which comes out, so you lose like 3/10 of an acre. So instead of a 8.86 acres, it becomes 0.51 acres, or just over half of an acre. It is low too, so there's going to have to be some fill, and fill is always kind of, I think, as much as 16 feet. So at the end of the day, staff does not think this is a usable piece of property for town staff purposes. The recommendation would be for the town to get an appraisal of the property, bring it back to the board for the board to consider whether or not you have any interest in selling the property. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hazen, I have a question, and I apologize for not bringing this to your attention prior to this meeting, but recently a constituent reached out and, having read our agenda tonight, expressed a concern that, in his opinion, we were paying too much for appraisals. So are you of the opinion that we are getting a good value on it? I mean,
I think it is.
Seems kind of high for a small undeveloped piece of.
That everybody we've checked with, it's around $2,500. I'm more than happy to, it's a professional service. We can get 3 bids and see what they're at, but it's pretty typical. Whoever the constituent is has additional information, please send it to us. We'd love to see, cheaper, as long as it's not.
I think they were comparing it to what they pay for a home appraisal.
Okay, and
and they said it was much less than what we're paying for just an open piece of land. I have no idea if it's reasonable or not.
We can kind of run that.
Yeah, so I'm otherwise fine with it. Is there other comment, Mr. Buckley?
Just real quick, I do know from a professional standpoint that commercial appraisals are probably 4 to 5 times more expensive than residential.
Well, there you go. Yeah, this person said they got an appraisal on their home for like $500.
That would be about correct, yes.
Yep, okay. All right. Well, Hazen, I mean, you can chase that down if you like. I mean, it's just a comment someone made to me. Are there any motions? Remind you, the temperature is dropping by the moment. Mr. Urban.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse on this conversation because it's adjacent to property that my firm is actively engaged in.
Thank you, sir. Okay, you stand in recusal. Would someone else like to make a motion? Commissioner McCool.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to seek an appraisal for this property. Once the appraisal is complete, the matter will be brought back to the board, and it should cost approximately $2,500.
I'll second that.
Motion from Commissioner McCool, second from Commissioner Whitley. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McCool.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That passes 6-0 with Commissioner Urban in recusal. Commissioner Urban, you can rejoin us, and we'll move on to item 9B. Consider budget ordinance amendment to increase the state health plan premiums. Unfortunate news, Mr. Blodgett.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, it is. This is really, I don't have any good news in this memo that we're about to share with you. We received notice, I think it's December 2nd, that our rates were going to go up 24%. Jay, if you can enlarge that a little, thank you. A little bit more, there you go. Just to, I guess, to vent some more, we got an email from the treasurer's office saying it was going to go up some, and then they pulled the notice off like 3 days later and said, we'll give you more information at another time. And then all they did was spring this on us and tell us it's going to go up in less than 30 days. It's a cost of $160,000 for 6 months. So that's the rest of the fiscal year. I have reached out to Representative, both Representative Hunt and Jackson. I have not heard back from Ms. Jackson. I followed up on Friday with her legislative assistant. It's new. The other one was great. I haven't heard back again. I don't know if it's, whatever, holiday break. I do not know what they can do about it. And one of the things we've, under complicating issues, we've found that state legislation that apparently prohibits towns, cities, and counties that participate in the state health plan from leaving the plan. Now, this is astounding to me. I talked to Tanya today, and Tanya talked to Carolyn Smart, who's the service director of plan integration. And this is a quote. She said, there are no circumstances to allow termination. So
excuse me, Hazen, can we ask Mr. Buckley to address that? Because that's got to be illegal. Because what if, as I proposed the other day, what if they came in and said, we're going to raise it 50 times the current rate? We would be obligated to go bankrupt and use their insurance? I mean, doesn't seem reasonable or even legal. How is that legal, Charlie?
Mayor, I'll have to confess, I have no knowledge of the health laws and insurance laws whatsoever. I've never worked in that field.
This definitely seems like something we should add to our legislative agenda going forward, because
No question about it.
Yeah.
No question.
a ridiculous law that they just have carte blanche to charge us whatever they want and we have to pay it forever. That's ridiculous and unacceptable.
Well, the second bullet point is that the state health plan covers over 700,000 people, which is a good thing. Large plans mitigate risk, and generally speaking, you have less swings. Now, this swing is very, very high, but up until we've been on the plan for probably, I think, 6 years, it's been very moderate, around 3%. So it's been very moderate until this year. My personal theory, we got special legislation to do this. Us in Elizabethtown were the first to do this. Representative, one of our representatives, Raleigh helped us. We were very thankful. It got expanded to more and more towns. So I think I think one idea would be to try to get special legislation to allow us to back out of it if we wanted to. I mean, we're only 160 people. We're not needle movers like, I don't know, Department of Corrections or whatever these huge state departments are. I think my guess is it's an unintended consequence, whether they're fear of 100,000 or 200,000 individuals moving out of the plan. 160 will not have a detriment. That won't. It's insignificant either way.
And were you able to get a competitive quote like from NCLM or anyone else?
No, we didn't even try. Oh, let me ask, what's the question again?
Have we looked elsewhere? Can we get a better deal somewhere else? I mean, we joined this plan because it was less expensive. And now it may be more expensive than
Right. So I think the hurdle is, I think we're stuck this year. I don't see how we can get out of it render this fiscal year. I think the question is for next fiscal year, what do we do? And look at, like, are the rates just as bad over there at the league? There's apparently another group that's a subset different from the league. And then can we actually can we change the law to get out too? So there's a couple of complicating factors that we need to take into consideration. And I don't know if it's a long session or short session. Does anybody know? I mean, long session, they take new bills, short session, they don't. So anyways, that's, as we see, we're tied to for the next 6 months, and then we need to kind of evaluate this situation we're in.
Fair enough. So we need another 160 large to move forward. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, that's what yeah.
Commissioner Miller, you are muted, sir.
On mute.
He had me do the budget because I was outgoing, but I don't want to lift this one up. Sorry.
Jay, write a check, will you? Make up the difference.
I mean, we don't have any choice. I mean, we don't have any choice. If we're going to cover our employees, this is the route we have to go for at least the next 6 months. I think we can change the law because it does seem it's got to be illegal or unconstitutional or something. Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
I'll make a motion that we approve the attached budget amendment appropriating $160,000 from the fund balance to the Human Resources Medical Insurance line.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Garner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Urban. Roll call vote. Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner?
Yes.
Ready to go to.
Commissioner Urban?
Begrudgingly.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And I vote begrudgingly yes as well, so that passes unanimously. We really need to address this, and I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a better response from our representatives. We need to keep pushing them. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 10, reflections from outgoing commissioners. I thought the way we would run this is before allowing the outgoing commissioners to speak, to allow each of the current board that are outgoing to maybe speak for a moment or two on each of our fine folks that are leaving, Commissioners Bland and Miller. So Larry, if you would like to start that, maybe say what your thoughts are about Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Bland.
Yeah, I will, Mayor. Certainly Dave and I had several conversations. We were two old men on this present board. I think I was about 4 or 5 months older than Dave. And Jeff and I've been sitting beside each other for the last 6 years that I've been on the board. And it's a great friendship. And thank you for the service that y'all both rendered and the time that you put in. I know Dave, with you with the law firms, I know it's busy there. And Jeff, I know you're looking forward to what you do on the side and with your new bride. But thank y'all for the friendship and thank you for the service that you render to the town of Matthews.
Thank you, Rev.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitley. Mayor Pro Tem Garner.
I thought we were roasting them.
That's what I plan on doing. So wait till it's my turn, but go ahead.
But it has been an honor to serve with you both, and you both brought me moments where I reconsidered some of my initial decisions on items. And I think that's always a positive thing, to have robust conversation and dialogue about issues. So I appreciate that from where I sit, and you've both been so dedicated to the town. You've made Matthews a much better place, and I appreciate you for it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Dave and I were just starting to get to know each other, sitting side by side on the dais, and COVID hit, and I'm really just disappointed about that. So I was looking for better and bigger moments, but we've done our best through Zoom, and I appreciate Dave, taking this hiatus and coming back. And it's a tough road to hoe, and I really appreciate all of his effort that he made in his time period. Wish him well. Obviously, the law firm is doing well, and you're probably very busy. As far as Jeff, I've known Jeff way too long. I don't know how long, Jeff, we've served on the board together, but it's always been fun, insightful. Your impromptu tirades, commentary, witty criticism is always kind of brought interesting moments to the board at times, and I will surely miss that. I will miss those interruptions during the planning retreat and the sort of off moments that you've had. You just brought real fun and levity to the board that I think it will be surely missed, and I will surely miss you sitting across from you at the board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner McCool.
First, Dave, a moment that I laughed at is I remember in their planning conference before COVID hit, you and I sitting on the couch on the retreat watching Ancient Aliens, and we were joking about that. So I got a little bit more of a personal side of you, and you've been a dedicated servant. You served the board long before I was born. So thank you for what you've done. Jeff, you've been an awesome mentor. I've listened to you a lot, and you've been very helpful to me, and I'm sad to see you go, and I'm glad to call you a friend. Thank you.
Now it's my turn. I'll probably be a little more wordy. I'll try to go quickly. I know we're in a hurry, but start with Commissioner Miller first. Jeff and I first met back in the early 2000s, I believe. I was a frequent public commenter before the board, and Jeff came and chatted with me after one of the meetings, and he said, you really ought to run for office. So I took his advice, and in 2009 I ran for a commissioner seat, and I came in last place out of 7 people. Like, wow, that wasn't fun. And so Jeff and I remained friends. I didn't run the next time, and in 2013 I was talking to Jeff, I don't know, it was probably over a beer somewhere, and he said, do you want to be known as a loser your entire life? And that really spurred me to run again. And so you have, as I've told many people, Commissioner Jeff Miller to blame for me being an elected official here in the town. While everyone that serves on the town board contributes to Matthews in some meaningful way, even for one term, I think it's important to realize Jeff's been on the dais for 7 terms, 14 years, and he's helped us weather many storms, but there are 3 items that I want to bring about that I think are part of his legacy. The first is something I've always appreciated in Jeff, and that's his willingness to change his mind on an issue. An example was in 2018, Jeff was initially a supporter of the HB 514 legislation for charter schools, but he ultimately voted to disavow it. I bring this up not to revisit something that was controversial in our town, but just showing Jeff's willingness to consider other viewpoints. And he certainly hasn't always agreed with me. We've butted heads, but he reevaluates his decisions over time. And I think that's the hallmark of a really good leader. So I appreciate that. Secondly is disarming potential firestorms. Commissioner Urban mentioned Jeff's sense of humor, which has certainly done that to a lot of degree. But I remember when we took our current term in 2019, and after the resignation of Commissioner Dement, our board was in a great disarray, and it was Jeff who emotionally nominated the next highest vote receiver, which was Ken McCool, to be appointed to the board. And Jeff, you said at the time, I didn't want to see us split up and arguing about a board member instead of carrying on the work of the town. And I think that shows great maturity. And it did. I feel certain we would have been kind of split and arguing about things that weren't important. And instead, we got to work with a full board. So thank you for that. And finally, if I can say one word that I think will sum up Jeff's legacy to the town, greenways. I think, Jeff, that's your biggest gift to the town. Your advocacy, enthusiasm for building greenways here was and is contagious, turning even some of the most hardened anti-greenway people, and I think I was one of those initially, and to some of the biggest supporters. It's hard to walk along a greenway in Matthews and not think about Jeff Miller's efforts on their behalf, starting all the way back to his pre-commissioner days on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board when we first started talking about greenways. And to put a cherry on top of everything, Jeff also has pushed for much of the art we see along the greenways and throughout the town. So Jeff, I think that's your best legacy, the best thing you're going to be remembered for. And I think Matthews is a much better place because you decided to live here and that you decided to get involved. So thank you for a job well done.
Thank you.
We expect you to take a few years off and then run again like Commissioner Bland. And now we'll move on to Commissioner Bland. In 1984, Commissioner Dave Bland joined the law firm of Weaver, Bennett and Bland as a founding partner. And over the last 37 years, he's handled matters in almost every possible kind of civil litigation case. But even with his hectic day job, Dave found time to serve 5 terms as a Matthews Town Commissioner, first between 1985 and 1993, and again between 2019 and 2021. So what can we point to Commissioner Bland's greatest achievements as an elected official? And this is my opinion, but I'm sure there are many others, Dave. But I think first and foremost for me personally is he was the voice of reason in the difficult COVID era. On several occasions over the last 2 years, Dave called me. We discussed the town's actions at length in an effort to quell the effects of the pandemic. And Dave, you reassured me probably more than you know. Some of the decisions that we were making as a board were very controversial. We went through a very difficult time, a very dark time in Matthews. I had physical threats against some of us. And you were always that voice of reason that provided knowledge that helped the board learn from its past when you served previously and relying on things that worked and avoiding things that didn't. And so I really appreciated your sage advice during those times. And it meant really a lot more than you know. Secondly, while on the town council, he also served as Matthews representative on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's now CARTPO, when the actual route for the 485 outer belt through Matthews was selected. And I'm sure this was no easy task. It probably took considerable effort on Dave's part to decide where 485 should go in Matthews, just as today as we struggle with the Silver Line. The same was true then, and we appreciate all your hard and dedicated work at that time. And finally, as I said, maybe the legacy for Mr. Miller is the Greenways. Dave, I think, may best be remembered as the leader of the fight against Mecklenburg County placing a landfill where the Matthews Sportsplex is now located. I think most people in town know that, maybe some don't. I think most of us elected officials know, but Dave, I've talked to people at the county level that remember your ability to stand up toe-to-toe with Mecklenburg County officials who were determined to place a dump in Matthews on that property. And because of your efforts, we have a much more favorable outcome. So your efforts will be remembered and enjoyed for generations to come by all the people that play at the Sportsplex. They're not piling over a garbage dump. They're able to play sports and do family things like that. So again, thank you, Dave, for your service to the town. And now I would like to allow each of the departing commissioners to give their final thoughts. Commissioner Miller, we'll start with you.
Oh, let's let Dave go first.
Okay.
Okay.
However you like it. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Mayor Higdon, fellow commissioners, citizens of Matthews, I'll be brief. I would like to thank the voters for allowing me to serve the citizens of the town of Matthews for these past 2 years. It was a privilege and it was a pleasure to serve our citizens with my fellow commissioners and with Mayor Higdon. We have certainly faced some difficult issues during the past 2 years with the COVID pandemic. But I must say that although we did not always agree with each other on every issue, I really feel that we worked well together to reach decisions that would accomplish what was best for our citizens. The town is very fortunate to have such excellent town staff at every level and every department. I want to thank Hazen, Blodgett, our town manager, for making my job much easier and for guiding our town staff through the difficult times during COVID. I know that the town is in good hands, and I certainly wish the mayor, the new council, and our town staff much success over the next 2 years and for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the others that I've served with on this board through the years. There have been 7 different boards of commissioners, et cetera. When I was first elected 14 years ago, Pat McCrory was the mayor of Charlotte. And since that year in 2007, I'm proud to have served with 4 different mayors in Matthews. First, Lee Myers, then Jim Taylor, Paul Bailey, and John Higdon. And as mentioned earlier, it did all start with the 4 Mile Creek Greenway, which was a tough fight, and many were fearful of the crime, but the facts didn't back that up, and we showed that through data from the police force. Today, we had a meeting about the Carolina Thread Trail, and they were reminiscing about how 12 years ago or so, they were starting this planning, and I happen to know that we were an important leg in that, and I'm proud of all that we've accomplished to date. One of the hurdles along our greenway was the old Public Works location is now Fountain Rock Park, but it used to have fencing like TrueLink fence, razor wire. It was an eyesore that we were able to turn around. Art on the Greenway created interest out of sewer pipes and manhole covers. Squirrel Lake Park was updated with picnic shelters and public bathrooms. Public bathrooms, some were fearful of those bathrooms, and it was passionately debated. The disc golf course in Squirrel Lake Park was controversial, but it's popular now. As I was reminiscing through my notes, I was reminded some of the talking points were that it was family friendly. It's an inexpensive sport to play. It utilizes a neglected area of the park. It was just a forest at the time. It's non-intrusive to the adjacent neighborhoods, and it decreases the undesirable activity in the woods, as there was some beforehand. It's fun for all ages, and it came at a very low cost to the town, so we're proud of that. During this time, we introduced wayfinding signage, and the gateway entrances certainly welcomes people to Matthews better than the typical green metal sign with a population count. The widening of South Trade Street has been a huge success. I would ask you to please remember when it used to be 2 lanes, then there was a brick wall on the west side, and Fullwood at the time was backed up practically to 51. The north end was a field, as was the Jekyll and Hyde lot. Commissioner Urban deserves a lot of credit for the North End development. He deserves a lot of credit for that. I'm proud of the promotion of murals around the town, and I hope that they continue. The Sportsplex, which was mentioned a moment ago, it's been hindered during COVID, but it's a huge success for tourism, and it brings a lot of business to the local businesses in town. I'd like to call to your attention, during the years on the board, we've earned many awards. I'll go through a few of them. Top 10 best city in North Carolina, one of the top 10 suburban towns in all of America, one of the 10 best towns for families in the nation, awarded by Family Circle magazine, one of the top 10 places to retire in North Carolina. We're the 7th safest city in North Carolina, according to safehome.org. In 2016, 5 years ago, we were awarded a Great Main Street Award, which we collected in Raleigh from the American Planning Association for Matthews Station Street and its design. In 2017, we won 2 awards, the 3rd best suburb from Charlotte Magazine and the 13th best state place in the state for young families in North Carolina by NerdWallet. So we're good for young and old. And 2018, we were rated the third most powerful suburb by the Charlotte Observer. And in just this year, we came in at number 27 of the 50 best cities to live in the South. With that being the case, I wanted to show a few photos back in time, if you don't mind, and I'll wrap it up. Just a few pictures. This is what old Public Works used to look like and is now Fountain Rock. Oh, wait, did I share my screen? I have to share my screen, don't I? Let me do that real quickly.
I thought he was going to go, this is it right here.
No, I'm just, I knew it's sharing screen, I think is what it is. Can you see that?
No.
No.
Okay.
Lori, do you have the ability to show his presentation?
We do. Give us just a moment. Jay, would you mind sharing that item, please?
No, not the Cancun photos. Put those away, Jeff.
No, that was years ago. I'm sorry for the interruption and delay. I thought I could share it.
36.9. Nice and toasty.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, if you can see that, then I think I'm sharing my screen then, and I'll just start from the beginning. You see the Matthews, Carolina, et cetera?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is the old Public Works, which today is Fountain Rock Park. You'll recognize the building on the right, but this is an example of the fencing and the Constantine wire. The biggest excitement was when kids could go in there and skateboard. They had to break in to get there, but that was the thrill of the game, I guess. And that was taken in April of 2008. I was sworn in December 2007. I somewhat complained to Lee Myers about the property, and he put me in charge of a mayoral task force, as every good manager should do. There's another example of the fencing and the wire. And a rundown building, and you'll notice the neighborhoods in the background. That was known as building number 2. Again, it was an ugly property, but it belonged to the town. So we got a hold of the fire department and did a controlled burn, got rid of it, graded the property, and we wanted to put in a water feature that you couldn't spray paint or tip over or fill with bubbles of any kind, liquid soap. So we dug a hole in the ground, got some boulders you couldn't tip over, drilled holes through them, put some rebar to connect the boulders, and drilled holes for the water feature. And that's what it looked like when we finished about 7-8 years ago or longer, probably 10. Does anyone remember where this house was? North Trade Street. It was run down. Again, this is January of 2008, and I was elected in December of 7. That's a close-up look at the front of the house and the side yard, which probably used to be a driveway. Well, that today is Jekyll and Hyde. Would you call this a gateway entrance into town? Well, that's looking up towards Christopher's. And that's what it looks like today. A little bit more inviting and pedestrian friendly. There's Brakeman's before and after. Big difference there. But I mean, these small homes that were somewhat unfinished at the time were a lot more common in 2007, 2008. Let's put it that way. That's an aerial image of the north end. It was a field. It had a gravel driveway, a few other outposts, that were uninhabitable, but that doubled the size of the downtown footprint. Once again, urban deserves a lot of that credit there. Pretty in the evening. But remember, all of you and the new board members, it takes teamwork. Nobody can do this on their own. We only have one vote each. So bring in your ideas, work to get them to fruition. And thank you. May you all work well together going forward.
Well, I can say that I know where both of you live, so we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn or take a 30-minute recess, Mayor Pro Tem Garner, you wanted to make a comment real quickly?
I did. On Saturday evening, I got a text about, I think it was 14 homes in the Courtney neighborhood had, there was a water main break. And if you remember Saturday evening, that's right about when the rain started pouring down. And they weren't getting a quick response from Charlotte Water. So I texted Hazen and let him know the address. And he got in his car and he went over there to make sure that everything was going so that they could get their water fixed. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you, Hazen, for doing that. That goes above and beyond. You took your weekend to go out in the rain and make sure that the residents of Matthews were taken care of. The woman who texted me said that's what makes Matthews incredible, and it's what makes her love living here. And so I think we should all, I just wanted to give Hazen the credit that he deserves.
Thank you, Hazen. Did you put on your waders that were like overalls with no shirt underneath? You went to check it out.
Renee's giving me way too much credit. I mean, I showed up there and the Charlotte Water guys were there. But
we appreciate you.
It was this effort. I made the effort.
Making the efforts. Appreciate it. Much appreciated. All right. Let me see. What time is it? What time do you guys have? 9:06, something like that?
Yeah.
Can we meet at town hall by 9:30? Who's bringing firewood? It's going to be cold out there. So we'll take a 30-minute recess. Do we have to take a motion to do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I will entertain a motion to take a 24-minute recess.
So moved.
So moved. I don't have to attend, do I, Mayor?
Only if you want to be ridiculed. No, no. You do not have to attend. You're welcome to attend if you'd like, both you and
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Thank
Bland.
you.
A motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner Whitley. Roll call vote. Commissioner Bland,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garner,
Yes.
Commissioner McCool,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller for the last time,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. We'll see you at 9:30.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Me too.
Everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, we're gonna get started. I know everybody's a little bit cold. I'm John Hazen, the Mayor of Matthews. We're gonna have a swearing in ceremony to conclude our regular meeting in just a minute. So we're gonna start with myself being sworn in as mayor. So, Lauren, I'm here with my mom and dad, John and Mary Hazen, my wife Penny, is gonna hold the Bible.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as mayor of the town of Matthews.
as mayor of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
See what I'm doing this way.
Boy, it's tough quietly talking when you have a mega mic strapped to your chest. All right, we're ready. We're going to start with Commissioner Renee Garner. Renee, you're going to take the oath of office. Please raise your hand. I state your name.
I, Renee Garner,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Gina, who do you have with you today?
I have my husband Ken and my son Aaron.
All right. Gina, please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gina Hoover,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Up we have Ken McCool. And you haven't been with me, have you? Oh my God. Someone like to hold the mic for him. Ken, who do you have here with you today?
I
I have my girlfriend Samantha, my parents, my good friend Christine, my brother, and my two good friends, Patrick and Connie.
All right. Can you repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Ken McCool,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Commissioner. For my basketball team. Next up is Commissioner Mark Capano. Who would like to hold the mic? Mark, please tell us who this group of people are.
Well, I have right here my cousins, Pam and Doug, and then all my wonderful friends, Ed, Jerry, Paul, Joanne, Lynette, Anna Marie, Fran, Jim, Joe, Joella, Chapman, Craig, Pam, Michelle, and Heather.
Fantastic. Right there. Mark, please, put your hand on the Bible. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Mark Capano,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
as a commissioner of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, next up, we have Commissioner Gunner. John, tell us who you have to get for this one.
So I have my best and my best friend, Becky Willard, who's president of the Matthews Historic Foundation.
Okay, Becky, could you hold the mic? John, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Commissioner of the town of Matthews.
as Commissioner of the town of Matthews.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. All right, up next and last. Would you get it for having Whitley for a last name? Larry Whitley, Whitley, alphabetical order. Larry, please tell us who's joining you tonight.
I have my two daughters, my oldest daughter and my baby daughter, and the campaign manager.
All right, Larry, please repeat after me. I state your name.
Repeat after me. I, Larry,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a commissioner of the town of Matthews. So help me God. So help me God. Congratulations. All right. All right, we're gonna get some chairs here, but please let's have a round of applause for our new next speaker. Slightly awkward. Again, we really do appreciate everybody coming tonight. We're going to start with some comments from everybody that was elected. We'll start with myself. I just want to thank everybody in the town of Matthews that voted for me and had confidence in me. It was a tough campaign this time. Santa Claus came in second. I very much am thankful to everyone for their confidence and voting for me. I'd like to especially thank my wife Betty and my parents and brother-in-law and campaign manager, my sister Vicky, the rest of my family, and my business partners, Tyson Dick and Wealth and Brian Gunn, for allowing me the time, incredible amount of time it takes to be there in such a great city. So thank you to them as well. And we'll just go to my right, your left, start with, I guess, Commissioner Urban. Comments, sir? Thank you all for attending for this wonderful meeting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and I would like to thank the love of my life, my husband, for his support. And, thank you again.
Thank you all very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all my friends and family that are here tonight and who have supported me. And I wish my mom and dad could have been here to see this, and I know they would have been so proud. And I'm going to do absolutely my very best to instill you the faith that you had in me.
Beautiful girlfriend Samantha for continuously supporting me. He said, continue to do great.
Thank you so much for allowing me to serve you, citizens of Matthews, for a third term. And to my family, my wife is not here, but she recovered from